Hello, welcome to the video. It's been a while, I know that. Yeah, I've just updated Drinket Zenith to AAX and I've been continuing on with building, well, it's not my next plugin, but it's a future plugin, which is a drum kit library. I'm going through each of the round robins and just trying to make them sound sort of the same. 9 velocity layers. Beautiful. So I've got 9 velocity layers, 5 round robins. So 9 times 9 times 5 equals 405. So I've just checked and there are 405. Sometimes you can miss these things and it makes everything go absolutely apeshit. So it's worth checking. So I'm just going to come off the region render. I'm going to talk a little bit about compression. When I'm mixing these as I would a drum kit. I'm trying to mix them, at least for this instrument, I'm trying to mix them as sort of naturalistic as possible. So one, they're flexible to then fit into a wide range of material afterwards. You can apply more compression to things, more EQ. And I'm using stuff mainly just to sort of bring out qualities of the source material that I've recorded. A sort of method that I used to use back in the day when I would make stems. So what you ideally want when you create stems is a mix that can come together with separate elements. Now that's really difficult when you've got stuff that you're sort of relying on summing, compression. And so when I've mixed these, I've mixed them through submixes and folders, but obviously when I deliver them, I'm delivering them as separate, but I still want that tonality of the compression. So the way that I've achieved this, I'm sending the audio pre-fade post-effects to my compression sidechain. So rather than the key of a compressor being the sum of the material going into it, you use a key, a sidechain key to do this from those channels. So let's say I've got like my overhead 1 channel, my overhead 2, and it's all going into an overall overheads bus, or like multiple room mics, for example. Rather than those multiple room mics going into that bus channel, and that's what feeds the compressor, because then if I solo each of those microphones to export the samples, you're going to get a different kind of compression. Like you'll hear it in isolation and it'll sound great, but then that timbre is going to be different when you solo those tracks because it's not getting the same sum. So you take a pre-fade send and that then feeds that bus compressor via the sidechain. So if you solo a track, it's going to compress the same amount as if it's summing everything together, but you're just getting that effect on one channel, that when you put those faders together in the instrument, they've got that cohesive compression sound, but they're completely separate. So you can mix them, you can do whatever. When these are soloed, I'm going to get the same amount of compression, even though only one of the elements is going in. So the tonality of the compression remains consistent, but we've now got separate controls over everything. Sounds great, doesn't it, that far room? We got there in the end. Overheads. Yeah, it just means that I can have the same amount of compression regardless of what's been soloed and played through. So that sound remains consistent. So that tonality of this, which is a great sounding compressor. It's very cool. It's a little bit fiddly. It's also a similar process to the way people do stuff in Atmos, where you're dealing with object-based mixing. Okay, so I think I'm ready to go. So I'm going to... Probably going to take a while. This is my naming convention, and this is really important. If we go to my folder, one of the things that I've been asked about a lot is why I moved over to using Reaper. It's all about a process. It's like going through different things and you're checking along each stage, and each of those is really important to me. This stage where I export from the DAW, and then rename it and then bring it into a test instrument. I had used Pro Tools to do this for absolutely years. For some reason, well, it would have been 2022 when I moved over, 2023 maybe, it just decided to change how it would do that. So I would edit the session in order and then it would change it. And I can't work. Like, there's no way around that unless I'm exporting each one individually. But as you can see here, this is one drum and I've got 495 different pieces of audio. 405 pieces of audio, sorry. And there's going to be many more, and there's going to be many more velocity layers, especially on stuff like cymbals and things. So that very quickly becomes unworkable. And yeah, so I had to look for alternatives, and Reaper, as we've seen with the region bounce, is perfect. So that's what I've done. So it's put it in order. There we go, nice file room mic, D25. So the first thing that I'm going to do is figure out the points at which I want the velocity. This is my naming convention. So each of these contains information that's either useful to me or to highs. So I've got stuff like, this is the velocity layers that I'm going to be using. This is the round robin information, so we've got 5 of those. And this is the MIDI note. Now, it's actually going to be a little bit more complicated with the MIDI stuff because I want this to map to different instruments. So say you've got like a Roland V drum kit, you'll be able to map that differently within the instrument. But inside the instrument, it's always going to be this, and then it's doing its internal like routing kind of thing. I need to figure out where stuff is in this velocity layer. And it's not just as simple as going, okay, I'm going to split that evenly across from 1 to 127. Let me bring it in to highs. Throughout this process, you're going to see me build a lot of test instruments. And I do this because if you just leave everything to the sort of final moment and you've made some misstep along the way or things need to be renamed, you can create a huge amount of work. Whereas just sort of grabbing a few samples, building a test instrument, quickly figuring out if something works can influence the whole project and what you're going to do. And actually, this is what happens in this video. Spoiler alert. Is I'm going to just grab the first 9 and I'm just going to bring them in to C1. And we're just going to go drop. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Okay, alright. So that actually didn't take very long. I think that works nicely. So it's going to go 0 to 7, 22 to 36, 27. I'm into it. Right, now I know where my velocity layers are, I can write my velocity script. I know I could probably do this in Reaper, but this is sort of a list in the way I do things, and I basically just do the same thing, and it's like a process for me that I start here, then do this, then do this, then do this, and it just seems to, breaking it up in that way with various points to check things, I think is just really helpful for me in making instruments. So that's why I tend to do stuff with the rename script and the piece of software called A Better Rename, which I think is great. I've used it for like 15 years, 13 years, and it's great. I've yet to find a better one, so they've named it correctly. Alright, so we're going to start with the verse first. Verse first? DKB, so that's the instrument. That's the instrument, the drum. Versed, 36, note number, round robin 1. It should be right. I think that's good. I'm terrified. Shall we do it? Commitment.